The old Blackwood Manor loomed before them, its dark silhouette a stark contrast to the twilight sky. A shiver ran down Sarah's spine.
Maybe this wasn't such a good idea,
she whispered, her breath catching in the cold night air.
Scared, Sarah?
Chuckled Jake, his bravado a thin veil over his own apprehension. He pushed open the rusted iron gate, its hinges groaning in protest. The sound echoed in the silence. The group of friends exchanged uneasy glances but pressed forward. The dare had been made, and none of them wanted to appear like a coward. They shuffled towards the imposing oak door, its surface weathered and cracked. The peeling paint seemed to whisper warnings, but the whispers were lost on the teenagers. Excitement, mixed with fear, pulsed through their veins, a potent cocktail that dulled their senses.
Let's do this,
Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. She reached for the doorknob, its cold metal sending a jolt of fear through her. The door creaked open, releasing a musty odor that spoke of years of abandonment and decay. The adventure had begun. A thick fog began to roll in, blanketing the grounds in an eerie silence. The air grew heavy, filled with the weight of unseen eyes. The friends stepped inside, their footsteps echoing on the hardwood floor. Cobwebs clung to every surface, and dust swirled around their feet like phantom dancers. The interior of the mansion was shrouded in shadows. Moonlight filtered through grimy windows, casting long, distorted shapes on the walls. The air hung heavy with the smell of dampness and decay. It was the smell of forgotten memories and things best left undisturbed. As they ventured deeper into the mansion, the silence became oppressive. Each creak and groan of the old house seemed to amplify their fear. They moved from room to room, their whispers the only sound that dared break the silence. The mansion was coming alive, breathing down their necks.
Do you ever feel like we're being watched?
Whispered Michael, his eyes darting nervously around the room. Nobody laughed. The weight of unseen eyes pressed down on them, heavy and suffocating. They were not alone. They reached the grand staircase, its once polished banister now covered in a thick layer of dust. Each step they took was met with a chorus of creaks and groans. It was as if the mansion itself was trying to warn them, to turn them back from whatever awaited them at the top. A sudden gust of wind rattled the windows, sending shivers down their spines. The flickering candlelight cast grotesque shadows that danced and swayed, mimicking the movements of unseen observers. A cold draft snaked through the hallway, chilling them to the bone.
Did you hear that?
Sarah whispered, her eyes wide with fear. They all listened intently, their hearts pounding in their chests. A soft whisper seemed to emanate from the shadows, barely audible but undeniably present. They held their breath, straining to hear over the pounding of their hearts. The whisper came again, closer this time. A mournful sigh carried on the wind. Fear tightened its grip on their chests, squeezing the air from their lungs. They pressed on, their fear a tangible presence now, clinging to them like cobwebs. A high-pitched giggle echoed from the end of the hallway, sending chills down their spines. It was a child's laughter, filled with an unsettling joy that sent shivers down their spines. The hairs on the back of their necks stood on end. As they cautiously moved towards the source of the sound, they stumbled upon a room at the end of the hallway. Its door was slightly ajar, and a faint light flickered from within. With bated breath, they pushed the door open and stepped inside. The room was a child's nursery, frozen in time. A rocking horse stood silently in the corner, its once bright paint faded and peeling. A doll lay discarded on the floor, its porcelain face cracked and staring blankly at the ceiling. The air was thick with a cloying sweetness that made their stomachs churn. On the far wall hung a portrait of a young girl with piercing blue eyes. Even in the dim light, her gaze seemed to follow their every move. It was as if she were alive, trapped within the canvas, her eyes reflecting the same terror that now gripped their hearts. Section 5, The Diary.
My curiosity outweighing my fear, I wandered away from the group.
Jake found himself drawn to a dusty old bookcase tucked away in a shadowy corner of the library.
As I ran my fingers along the spines of the books, I noticed one that was slightly out of place.
He pulled the book from the shelf, and a cloud of dust erupted into the air, releasing a musty odor. The book was a leather-bound diary, its pages brittle and yellowed with age.
Its cover was devoid of any markings, its dark surface seeming to absorb the light.
As he opened the diary, a cold draught swept through the room, extinguishing his candle and plunging him into darkness. The room felt colder now, the air thick with an unseen presence.
I fumbled for my lighter, my heart pounding in my chest.
As the flame flickered to life, his eyes fell on the first page of the diary. The words were written in a delicate flowing script, the ink faded but still legible.
They call me mad, the entry began, but I know the truth. This house is cursed, and it will not rest until it has claimed another soul.
Suddenly, the sound of shattering glass echoed from upstairs. The friends froze, their blood turning to ice in their veins. They exchanged terrified looks, their eyes wide with a primal fear that spoke of things beyond human comprehension. The fragile thread of their courage snapped.
We need to get out of here.
Emily whispered, her voice trembling. They turned to flee, but the hallway behind them had vanished. In its place was a solid wall, cold and unyielding. They were trapped. The temperature plummeted, and the air grew heavy with the smell of damp earth and decaying flowers. A cold, bony hand reached out from the shadows, its long, sharp fingernails digging into Jake's arm. Ah! He screamed, a raw, primal sound of pure terror. A figure materialized before them, its form shifting and swirling like smoke. It was the girl from the portrait, her eyes burning with a cold, ethereal fire. Her voice, when she spoke, was a hollow whisper that seemed to seep into their bones.
You will not escape. This house is mine.
Panic seized them. They stumbled back, their eyes wide with terror as the ghostly figure advanced. The air crackled with an unseen energy, making their hair stand on end. Fear, raw and primal, surged through their veins, urging them to run, to scream, to do anything but face the apparition that stood before them.
Who are you?
Sarah choked out, her voice barely a whisper. The ghost turned its hollow eyes on her, a flicker of sadness in their depths.
I am Anna.
The apparition whispered, her voice echoing through the room.
What do you want?
Michael stammered, his voice trembling. Anna's form flickered, her spectral hand reaching out towards them.
I want you to leave. This house, it's not safe.
We're trying to let us leave and we won't bother you again.
Anna shook her head slowly, her expression filled with a profound sadness.
You don't understand. You can't leave. Not anymore.
As Anna's translucent hand reached towards them, the diary in Jake's hand pulsed with a cold light. He instinctively opened it, the pages flipping rapidly until they landed on a faded entry. He began to read aloud, his voice trembling.
May 18th, 1888. My name is Anna Blackwood and I am a prisoner in my own home. My parents, they say I am ill, that my visions are madness. But I know the truth. There is a darkness here, an evil that whispers from the shadows. It wants to consume me, to make me its own.
He turned the page, his heart pounding in his chest.
June 1st, 1888. The darkness grows stronger. It whispers to me in my dreams, promising power, whispering secrets. I try to resist, but its pull is too strong. I fear for my soul.
His voice cracked as he continued.
July 4th, 1888. It's here. The darkness has taken hold. I can feel it inside me, twisting my thoughts, poisoning my spirit. I fear it will not be long now. My only hope is that someone someday will read these words and understand. This house is cursed, and I, Anna Blackwood, am its prisoner.
As Jake finished reading, Anna's form flickered, her sorrow palpable.
My parents, they tried to stop the darkness. They thought if they locked me away, it wouldn't spread. But they were wrong. It consumed them too.
She continued, her voice filled with pain.
The house, it feeds on fear, on despair. It's kept me trapped here for over a century, a prisoner of my own terror. But you have shown me kindness, compassion. You have given me hope.
She whispered, her voice almost a plea.
The diary, it holds the key to breaking the curse, but it comes at a price. One of you must stay, take my place, and become the new guardian of the house.
The friends looked at each other, their faces pale with fear and uncertainty. Their silence stretched on, each tick of the grandfather clock in the hall a hammer blow to their courage. Finally, Sarah stepped forward, her eyes filled with a strange determination.
I'll stay.
She said, her voice trembling slightly. A look of peace washed over Anna's face.
Thank you.
She whispered. And with a final sigh, she faded away, leaving behind only the faint scent of lavender and the echo of her sorrow.